Council President Lantry and council member staff, it's a pleasure to be back with you. And it's my hope that at a minimum on an annual basis we can come back and give you a report as to what we've been doing as our agency has been serving as your Sheriff's Department. I understand a few weeks ago my colleague at the County Attorney's Office, John Choi, had an opportunity to do something similar, and that is a piece of what we believe is part of being that public safety or that criminal justice team. I'd wait for questions, but I'll probably, for those in the room and some of the other folks in the room that don't necessarily, what does a sheriff do anyway? So let me just take care of that right now, and then kind of give you a few of the updates as to where we are right now and kind of the trajectory of where we're headed. First, we're in a unique position to lay claim to something that no one else in the state of Minnesota gets to say when it comes to law enforcement. We were founded in 1849. We are Minnesota's very first law enforcement agency. And it's about that time that somebody wants to look at the state flag and peel it open and they say, wait a minute, Sheriff, I think you got your dates wrong. It says 1858 on there. Nope, that was when we were a state. We were founded when this was a territory. And from that time, really the focus was to be a regional hub of how you deal with a lot of the criminal justice issues at that time, and we've continued through to this day. In the statute really lays out, I don't need to bring in a high-priced person to determine what our mission statement is or what our strategic plan is. It's really stated in the state constitution. The sheriff shall. The sheriff shall provide detention services. So police departments don't run jails. The sheriff's office is the one that manages all of those activities throughout our state. We also manage the courts, and that means that we do both lanes, the criminal lane as well as the civil lane. So the criminal side, that traditional things that you might see on TV where we do the bailiffing and court security and all that. But the other side, when the judge hits that gavel and has that piece of paper, they hand it to somebody for delivery. Well, that's generally my staff. We're the ones that are the extension of the bench. So right there you can start to see where our agency is a little bit different than other law enforcement agencies, that we tend to be that bridge between law enforcement, the courts back to the community. And then for the cities that don't have police departments in Ramsey County, we serve as the police department for 7 communities. And it's about 57 square miles, about 75,000 people that we serve as the primary law enforcement agency. We're in a unique position because of our authority. You see joint powers agreements frequently with the St. Paul Police Department when they want to join and do some interactive type of things with other agencies because of the geographic issues and corporate limits. Well, the Sheriff's Office is uniquely positioned to bridge those. And so because we have that full enforcement authority throughout the county, we can seamlessly work among our public safety partners and support them in their initiatives. And then the other thing, we do a lot of the documentation kinds of things, whether it's warrants, criminal histories, and so on. But then we provide tactical support, whether that's SWAT, canine, as well as training support for the other agencies that don't have their own. So we're really a unique way of how we take the best of what's going on in each of our communities, but I like to say we're the ligaments. We're the piece that really ties a lot of it together, and I think that's where our influence can be very positive in our community. Because as you know, no longer can we be agencies in public safety where we decide we're going to go it alone. I don't care how big your agency is. You can't do that. Those days, I don't know if it was ever a good idea, but they're certainly not only not a good idea, they're impossible to fund. And so the task of the Sheriff's Office is really to be characterized as that agency that knows how to come alongside and support those agencies that are already there. And I'll give you an example. So with Chief Smith, somebody said, how does that interaction work with the Sheriff's Office and a city that has their own chief? And I say, well, it's really simple. I want Chief Smith to be amazingly successful, because if Chief Smith is amazingly successful, crime is down, the city is more safe. I think that's good for Ramsey County. So, and I would say the same to each of our other communities, that's really what our role is. What can we do to support them and to make it a safer community? So we lead when we need to lead, we support when we need to support, and we cheer the others on when that's proper. And so that's the what we do. The how we do it really is characterized by providing the best in community policing services. Second, making sure that we never ever compete with other law enforcement agencies. We're characterized as collaborating. 3, we make sure we watch our dollars, that the dollars that we spend on public safety, it's not from the lottery, it's somebody's tax dollars that they've given to us so that they can sleep comfortably at night knowing that we're making the community safe. 4, we want to make sure that we're characterized by development, meaning we develop our staff from inside, but also when we hire from our community, so that when you come through the door, you see people that look like you at the entry level, mid-management, and at the top of the organization. And then finally, one of the other pieces that we believe, anytime you put on that uniform, you stand out in a crowd, and that's really the reason for having a uniform. And oftentimes people call us because there's behavior issues that they say that's not okay and we need to step in and stop that. But when we're not doing that, there are some things that we can do, I think, to continue to improve our community relations. And that is, I do want to always do well at catching kids doing things right. Because when you catch kids doing things right, one, it's not quite expected when you see somebody in law enforcement doing that. But second, we plant positive seeds for the future, that they start to see us not just as an enforcer, but really somebody that's committed to that community. And so that's the how we go about it. So the what you really find in the statute, the how we go about it are those details that I just mentioned. And so where this goes and the implications of those things have come up in some strategic things that we've been able to do thus far this year. First and foremost, we've been able to put together a manual. We have a policy manual that's based on national best practices as well as statewide best practices among Sheriff's Office. We polished them a little bit so that they fit well with what the residents of Ramsey County would desire. That's electronic. It's on every desktop and every laptop in our agency. That was done in the middle of this summer. We've continued to do additional training, and I'm going to say actually some very intensive training. An example, and this is kind of the sobering piece, but it is the role that our agency really has to be one of the leaders in, and that is when it comes to response to active shooters. When you do the analysis over the last 10 years of where active shooter events have occurred, the unfortunate part is they've occurred either in public meetings, like chambers of councils or school board meetings, and suburban schools. So when you think in those terms, who's likely going to be the first agency there to respond? Probably the Sheriff's Department. So we need to be the best. We need to be prepared. And the second thing is, if we're not the first ones there, we will probably be the second agency to help. Therefore, we need to know how to train with other agencies in this county. And we spent the summer doing that, training in the very schools and throughout our county, shoulder to shoulder with officers from St. Anthony and Roseville and Maplewood. And so in that regard, we've raised our standard. Our capability today exceeds just about any place else in the country. That's, again, just some amazing things we've been able to do. Where we're going in the future is to continue to develop management training, meaning where we bring together leaders both in the fire service, the police agencies, and we come together as managers and decide what does it look like to deliver great public safety, great public service, and how do we develop current leaders and future leaders in our organizations. Smaller fire departments and police departments don't have the ability to do that, but if we host it and we invite them, we can bring in some rather high-end training, and we can do it in an affordable way that they otherwise would have to go somewhere and probably wouldn't be able to afford to go. So those are just a few of the things that we're doing now. And then lastly, I just want to comment on the relationship that we have with the county attorney's office. That is really a unique time and really enjoyable for me to know that I have a colleague at the county attorney's office that shares a like mind, in that the way that we understand criminal justice is not a matter of factories, that there's the sheriff's factory and there's only this much that we do, and then you have the county attorney's factory and this is what they do. We understand that we're interconnected, and that while we have to we arrest and we prosecute in accordance with the law, one of the measures of our success is how we do that, but the second measure of success should be what are we doing to make sure people don't come back? What are we doing to position them so that they don't re-enter the system? And to really take active roles in looking at new strategies and then measuring those current strategies to see if they're effective, and if they're not effective, amend them so that we can have a better chance for an improved outcome. So it's an exciting time to serve as sheriff. This is really regional government in many ways, is both something we don't talk about that often sometimes in government, is effective and efficient. And I'm delighted to be sheriff. It's an honor to have spent time and served you as a member of the St. Paul Police Department, but now to serve as your sheriff, I'm delighted to do that. And I'm wondering, and now I'll pause and say, part of this is are there some things, service areas that we could do better to serve you?
I was a nice open question.
Well, if you don't have those, I'll take them in writing or phone calls later. So
We know where to
I didn't give you a lot of, yeah, you can probably find me.